What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream. We are live again. Lord, baby Jesus. And I've been missing y'all. Y'all know Twitter and politics and YouTube, they got me stressed. The DNC got me stressed. They constantly rigging. And it seems like they get away with it far too often. More often than they should be able to, in my humble opinion. And I'll go into details about why I think that is. But although I am happy to see all your smiling faces again, obviously I can't see you through a computer, but you know what I mean. I still have to break the bad news. And that bad news is that Tulsi has been kept out of the third debate. For those of you who do not know, it's basically based off of arbitrary polling requirements, right? So she qualified in a total of 26 polls. She got 2% or more in a total of 26 polls. Only 2 of those polls were counted as endorsed polls by the DNC. 2 of them. Now, when you're talking about got over 2% in 26 polls, it wasn't like she got 2% in 26 polls. Some of those polls were ranging from 2% to 8% to 5%. One poll came out yesterday where she was top 5, but it wasn't sponsored by the DNC, so they didn't accept it. Now, obviously, Tulsi has been prodding and we've been probing, and everybody's been trying to figure out what criteria exactly are you using to determine what polls are considered legitimate by the DNC. And we still haven't gotten an answer, right? I don't think anybody's really surprised by that. But it's sad. It really is. It's ridiculous that this level of rigging is taking place so early. But what I find even more ridiculous, in my humble opinion, is the severe lack of outrage that I've seen overall. Yeah, of course, Tulsi supporters are mad. Yes, of course, some Bernie supporters are mad. But I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in a second. But I want to explain to y'all just how ridiculous this is. So they told us that they would be using 17 polls to determine who qualifies for this debate coming up. Guess how many polls they ultimately used? 10. Most of which were released within the last couple of days, of course. Some of which seemingly left her name off of the damn polls. Isn't that just lovely? Oh, but it gets better. So one of our dedicated Tulsi supporters emailed the New Hampshire, University of New Hampshire poll, the people who conduct the poll for the primary there, and says, yo, I don't understand. Why have y'all not conducted a poll? This doesn't make any sense. You haven't conducted a poll in over, I think it was over 2 months or a month or something like that. And I bullshit you not, y'all. You know what they emailed her back? Matter of fact, I want to read it verbatim. Because I don't want y'all to think I'm making this up. I don't want y'all to think this is hyperbole, because it is absolutely not hyperbole. Give me a second. I'm going to find it. This is what they responded back. We would be happy to do one if someone was willing to pay the $50,000 cost. Andrew E. Smith, PhD, University of New Hampshire, Survey Center. You know what that tells me? One of 2 things. One, the DNC, through some arbitrary means, selected polling services that literally could not afford to do the job. Knowing that they're having this new criteria, that they're literally basing who is going to get further exposure on that debate stage off of these damn polls. And so, of course, logic would tell you need to pick polling agencies that can be reliable, that if you, like, maybe y'all have a contract together, like, look, if you're going to be considered an authoritative poll when it comes to these debates, you have to do a new poll every month, at least, bare minimum. That's what they should have did. Clearly, they did not do that. You have to be able to pay for it, right? You have to have the money up front to pay for it. At least that. That's not what happened, clearly. And this poll from the University of New Hampshire that was not conducted because they didn't have the money to do it. So why in the hell are they considered a poll or a required poll by the DNC? But now we have another question. These polls specific to the DNC and the Democratic primary, are the companies paying for them, the polling agencies, or is the DNC paying for them? Because if it's the DNC paying for them, then we have an entirely different issue on our hands. Because that means they promised that at least 17 polls were going to be conducted to determine who makes that debate stage. They promised that. Then they only only 10 polls were conducted. And if what I'm saying is true, and what it looks like is true, they paid for 10 polls and refused to pay for the other 7 that they required to qualify for the debate stage. And if they refuse to pay for the other 7, that is out and out rigging. In my opinion, that is a suable offense. You set dubious criteria that you knew couldn't be. And it's not just Tulsi, by the way, people. Marianne Williamson is also getting screwed by this poll. Because at this point, to my understanding, only Marianne Williamson and Tulsi have hit that individual donation requirement and yet have not qualified for the debate stage. With Marianne Williamson, it's a little more understandable. Only a little bit. Right? Marianne Williamson isn't interviewed constantly to the degree that Tulsi is. Right? Also, Marianne Williamson did hit hers a little bit later than Tulsi. Actually, almost a month later than Tulsi. Tulsi hit her donation requirement 24 hours after debate. 24 hours after the second debate, boom. She hit it. 130,000 unique individual donors, and right now she's at 165,000-ish last time I checked. So at that point, within that 24 hours after the debate, when Tulsi hit it, anyone who would hit the individual donation requirement qualified through polling. Because, I mean, it makes sense, right? If you have enough support where you can get 130,000 individual unique donors, it is highly likely that you're going to make at least 2% in most polls. Oh, and that's right. Tulsi did make 2% in most polls. That's right. It's just the DNC's polls. She didn't make 2%. Remember, at first, she wasn't even registering at all on their polls. They were saying she didn't even have 1%. They weren't even including her in the polls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's ridiculous. Smitty, thanks for the super chat. Tulsi says sue the DNC. I don't think she's ruling it out, to be completely honest with you. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody else's. I feel like I'm missing one. Okay, I guess I didn't miss anybody else's. Oh, I did miss one. Tulsi should do a fire-breathing endorsement of Bernie. We'll get to that in a second. At the end of the day, what we are witnessing is out and out rigging. And I don't think that can be denied. However, I've seen a lot of people denying it. Oh, well, she knew about the polling requirements prior to X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, what? First of all, those polling requirements are literally only 2 months old. And clearly they're fluid because, well, remember what they did to Andrew Yang? He thought he had qualified right before the debate. And then they were like, oh, no. we're not using all YouGov polls anymore. Only this very specific one by CBS. Well, what's wrong with the one by The Economist? Now, some good news. I do want to give some good news. There is still a good chance she'll make the October 4th debates. There's a very good chance of that. I think that not her October 4th debates, the 4th debate, not the October 4th debates. I don't know. I think it's in October, but I don't know what day it is. There's a very good chance that her presence will be sorely missed. The more that they were kind of panning away from her in the first debate, keeping the camera off her, the more people were Google searching her, according to Google's trends. So I do believe NC polls are highly oversampling old people. They're afraid of her. And where is Anna Kasparian calling out this trickery? Oh, boy, you know, Anna Kasparian ain't calling out a damn thing. She's not calling out anything. Come on, you know better than that. We know how Anna gets down. But even still, I agree with you 100%. They don't care about if this was Elizabeth Warren or Bernie, Anna would be a little bit quicker to say something, I'm sure. Well, hold on, double back. We don't know that for a fact. I have to actually, you're right. I can't really say that for a fact she would say something. And the reason why is because she stood idly by while Bernie was being rigged. And instead of wanting to deal with that from a legitimate level, like a strategic level, like Anna decided, nah, we just gonna vote for Hillary instead. Thinking that if we just vote for Hillary, that will erase all the rigging that took place. And that's what most of TYT did. So I can't even say with confidence, right, that they would speak up even if it was being rigged against Bernie. So the good news is she can still qualify for that 4th debate. She still has a chance to. She's clearly doing well in the polls. She's improved across the board in polling since the 2nd debate. She's improved across the board in fundraising, and she's getting more attention. And now that she's back from deployment, I do believe there will be a media push because of her getting, because of basically her getting shafted. There is going to be a lot of controversy surrounding that. And I think that it'll work to her advantage in that regard. So that's the good news. So don't stop pushing. Don't stop campaigning. The campaign is not even close to being over. For those of you who do not know, Donald Trump actually missed one of his debates before, like, ultimately going to the next debate and crushing it. So just a fun little tidbit, right? When you are that electric personality, when you are that electric candidate, I do think that there is an element of like being off the debate stage is just as much of a story as being on the debate stage that she can take advantage of, and then really expose the same way Trump was doing. Remember, Trump was talking about the fact that at that time, basically, the RNC, like that, because you know the RNC didn't really like him back then. And so he was basically saying the RNC is trying to rig this against me. He was a little bit more pompous about it and a little bit more egotistical. He was basically like, if y'all need me on this debate stage, not the other way around. Watch the ratings plummet if I'm not on it. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So there is something to be said that it is a good possibility she'll still be on the fourth debate, but we can't pretend like her being shafted right now isn't a big deal. We can't, because it is. She's being cheated right in front of us. And so the question that has been getting asked to me today is, how do I feel about Bernie's silence about this? It's frustrating. And I actually talked about this on Twitter yesterday. I'm from New York, but I lived for a good part of my life in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm from what you would call the hood. From Strickland Bridge Road. If you're from Fayetteville, you definitely know what Strickland Bridge is. And for my people from those type of areas, basically you ain't got a lot of money. You don't have a lot of opportunity. You don't have a huge network. Really, all you have is loyalty. And the moment that you betray that type of loyalty, you can't get it back. And it always comes back to bite you in the ass when you do. And I wish that our progressive politicians had a little bit more hood in their politics, because this DC nonsense is the DC two-step is what I like to call it, the do-si-do, the DC do-si-do. It's disheartening, and it doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well. And the reason I say that is because I didn't really care all that much that he didn't come to fight her battles for this entire election. Tulsi is very much so capable of fighting against smears and things like that. But I like to look at things in context, right? I'm big about this. Context and patterns of behavior is like, I'm obsessed with them, to be honest with you. It's how I got into politics, actually. And given the context of how we even got to this point, do a lot of you know how we got to this point? Tulsi, before even endorsing Bernie as the vice chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, spoke out against how the debates were being rigged against Bernie. That's actually how the whole thing started, right? They were being rigged against Bernie. Tulsi, in a position of power, used that power to leverage support towards Bernie away from Clinton, towards the progressive ally away from the establishment, towards progress away from regressivism. Obviously, Bernie's not about to endorse Tulsi. Clearly, he's running for office. Nobody's asking that. But what I am saying is that the only reason that Tulsi has the progressive support, the libertarian support, and the conservative support is for a different reason. Because of her common sense. I mean, she just takes her entire approach is common sense. Like, that's literally, it's common sense 2020. But for the progressives who have known her since 2015, that initial support came from a move she made at a time where progressives at the time who were supporting Bernie were just as desperate for an ally, any ally out there who will use their platform to call out the rigging that was taking place. They were desperate for it. Or I was there. I remember. And I remember at that time, Tulsi, knowing her career would never be the same. I assume she knew that. Did the right thing. Not because it was Bernie Sanders, but because it was the right thing to do. And so that's why it's a little frustrating. It's a little frustrating. I can only imagine what's going on in Tulsi's head. But it's a little frustrating for Bernie, especially because of how their relationship that we know in public came to be. It was literally standing up for Bernie because of the rigged debates. So as we see this dubious criteria being put out for qualifying for the debates, we know it's clearly rigged. They haven't even conducted 17 polls like they told us they were going to do. They've only conducted 10. To not see Bernie leverage his popularity, his clout, his gravitas that he has right now to say, nah, y'all can't do her like this. And from a personal perspective, when he doesn't say, Like, just from a personal perspective, like a loyalty perspective, fuck politics, right? This woman did X, Y, and Z for me when no one else would look out for me, when no one in the DNC would fight for equity and for fairness and for a fair process. Tulsi not only did that from within the DNC, but she resigned when they tried to push back against her to endorse him and travel with him around the country. I don't want Bernie fighting all her battles. But this specifically, just because I don't want you fighting all her battles, and I'm sure Tulsi doesn't want the same, at what point does just your principles kick in? And given the context, right? Once again, you got to think of the entire context. It would be different if he didn't write that letter to Center for American Progress, threatening to use his leverage and popularity when they attacked Warren and Booker. Because that's what he did. It would be different if he didn't just completely black out Tulsi's name from any and every conversation that he has about the other 2020 candidates. It would be different if Tulsi didn't endorse or didn't, not even fuck the endorsement. It would be different if Tulsi didn't do the exact same thing for him in 2015, 2016, when she spoke up specifically about the debates. That's what their entire relationship in 2015 was predicated on. I'm starting to see this pattern emerging where it's ask, right? When it comes to Bernie, and I would say more specifically a lot of his supporters, it's ask. And it's crazy. We just hit 40,000, but I'm sure after this speech, we're going to go back to about 3,900. I really don't care because the message it needs to be said. When they're like, we got to donate to Bernie, we have to ignore everything Bernie does wrong because it's 4D chess. If he says something wrong, like with Russiagate, for example, he has to play politics because he needs neoliberal this A, B, C, and D. That's not how it works. He has to do this. We gotta. No, if you say anything about Bernie, his supporters get so sensitive about it. Anything about him. Don't ever bring up his record on foreign policy. But the moment that Tulsi is dealing with something, like with Bernie, has to be solidarity, has to be unity. With Tulsi, well, we try, guys. Good luck. Endorse Bernie. No, I'm gonna say the same thing about Tulsi as I did about Bernie, and still say about Bernie to this day. And if you ever want to question my credentials about putting my money where my mouth is, ask who started the DNC fraud lawsuit. When I said we need accountability, we don't just need to move on and forget about what happened. I mean that. To the point where I uprooted my life because of I believe in that so much that this is just what I'm very firm and principled when it comes to dealing with the problem rather than acting like it didn't exist. So instead of saying, oh, she should drop out and endorse Tulsi, the next thing that should be out of any progressive's mouth should be, what do we do about this? We cannot allow a rigged system to determine the outcome of our democratic process. That should be the next word out of anybody's mouth. If you're really anybody, but specifically if you're a progressive. Let me get some of these super chats. When did Bernie stand up for Canova? Oof. Yeah. I ain't gonna talk about that right now, but I know what you're talking about. So Cal, so when are you gonna endorse Bernie? For what? He don't need my. I mean, I support Bernie, but why do I need to endorse him? I endorsed Tulsi already. Joe Rogan should stream him watching the debate with Tulsi and Marianne, encouraging them to comment. Actually, that would be dope. I like that. Wallace West, thanks for the super chat. Niko, tell everyone to email Bernie and urge him to stand up for Tulsi. I 100% agree. Email him, tag him on Twitter, do whatever you can. Convo Couch, guess who's back? Back at it again. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the super chat. But yeah, so, and it's not like I'm not really mad about it. I think the feeling is just more disappointing, right? It's disappointment. It's disappointment because, like, from a raw humanist perspective, I believe in loyalty above all else. And loyalty above all else doesn't mean you just letting your friend get in the way with robbing the bank and don't tell them, bro, that's stupid as hell. Don't go rob the bank. You'll ruin your life, right? Loyalty is beyond just blind fidelity. It's even when you're in the wrong, I'm going to correct you because that's not what's best for you. And as a friend, as a person I care about, I would not allow you to be self-destructive like that. So like when I'm seeing this, it's very telling, because it's not, once again, it's not just in a vacuum. We're not talking about this one incident in a vacuum. It's the fact that he doesn't mention her name, right? It's the fact that he has no problem mentioning Warren, Klobuchar, even Booker in some instances, right? It's the fact that he is seeing her being treated worse than what he was treated in 2015, and he hasn't said a single word about it. Now, if we combine that with the fact that he's pushing, for example, Russiagate again, and then on top of that, he's also using the Russiagate scare to push a shitty piece of legislation written by Amy Klobuchar. Guess where that legislation is a fucking a fake copy of? That is the copycat legislation that was initially passed in the House that used Tulsi's title, the election integrity bill. It used Tulsi's title. They tried to frame it like Tulsi's legislation, and they passed it under her nose while she was in Miami at the debates preparing. That is the legislation that, and it's shitty. It's really bad election integrity legislation. That is the legislation that Bernie is now pushing. And it's like, hold on. You're speaking up for Amy Klobuchar's legislation of election integrity, but it is what it was originally supposed to be. Once again, was the heir apparent to Tulsi's legislation, but they stole Tulsi's to give power to the state parties to determine like what is not rigging and what isn't rigging and XY. Like it's really bad legislation, y'all. It really is. And I've covered it here. Nobody else would cover it though. And guess why nobody will cover the legislation? This particular bad election integrity bill. One, it seems like nobody else speaks up about the like nobody reads this legislation anymore. It's really weird. They give all this commentary about it. Nobody reads legislation anymore. But the other real problem is that because Bernie is the one pushing it, people assume it is good. And that legislation is horrid. It is a watered down version of Tulsi's bill. So like now we're starting to see a pattern emerge, and that's what bothers me. That is what scares me, because after a while, what is your administration going to look like? You get what I'm saying, peeps? What is your administration going to look like eventually? It will look like how you campaigned. Obama campaigned by stuffing his pockets full of Wall Street, and guess what his administration looked like eventually? It looked like Wall Street, didn't it? Bernie is only one man, so even if he gets to the White House, he has to have an administration. But what happens if you end up picking people like Ro Khanna, picking people like Warren, Klobuchar, Gillibrand, Booker? If you succumb to pressure right now when you have all of the ammo, I mean, who's the front runner right now? Like, let's be clear. Who is the front runner? It is not even close. It is Bernie. Not even close. So if you allow this process to be rigged while you have all of the ammo, you have nothing to lose right now. This is your last rodeo. Only thing that Bernie can do at this point is lose support. It's very difficult for him to just, if he has so much support at this point, every gain in this stage of the election is marginal because he just has so much support. Now he has to pull in more independents and more conservatives. Speaking up for Tulsi would gain him more support, not harm him. Harm him again. Harm him in whose eyes? If it harmed him, speaking up for Tulsi would harm him in the eyes of neoliberals who are already not going to vote for him. This isn't even called, I don't even call it speaking up for Tulsi. Like I said, I don't want him fighting Tulsi's battles. Tulsi is more than capable of doing so. I want him speaking up for the process. Speaking out about the rigged nature of the process. Because if you do not speak out now, in August of 2019, it will be too late in July of 2020. This is something that I really need Bernie supporters, if you were new to the game, as in if you're 2016 or later, not 2015, 2016 or later, I'm going to need you to listen up, please. I'm sincerely requesting that you hear me out, because if you ask anybody in this chat, there's not a single person out here better at predicting outcomes when it comes to politics. Oh, I lied. My team, whether it be Pasta or Fiorella, they're damn good at it too. But it's because we're all on the ground. So when I tell you what I'm telling you, I'm hoping that you will take it in stride and actually understand where I'm coming from here. If Tulsi, hell, and I would even throw Marianne Williamson in there, but if Tulsi specifically is somehow forced out of this race, and this debate could potentially be a catalyst to that, Bernie cannot win. It has nothing to do with Tulsi personally. It has nothing to do with Bernie's success. It has nothing to do with the amount of numbers he had. Because, once again, I'm not new to this rodeo, and a lot of us are not. I was with Bernie in 2015. I worked on his campaign. I was the acting state director. I met with the man. One-on-one strategizing meeting with the man. Like, I've done it. I was there. Guess what? He had all the numbers last election. Exit polling was even favoring him last election, to the degree that they just removed it because he was doing so well. He had millions, or 1.2 million by the end of the election last year, individual donations. Last election, he had 8,000, 15,000, 20,000 people in filling arenas and in Central Park. Last election too. People bawling their eyes out at the Democratic National Convention because they knew people. An entire protest in the city hall, at the park, everywhere, marches. That's outside the convention, not to mention the thousands of people inside the convention for him. Guess what? A lot of people don't know he also won twice at the convention. Did y'all know that? He won the delegate count twice. They said they needed a do-over, and then put some ads on Craigslist to hire some Hillary delegates. So what am I trying to tell you? I'm trying to tell you, Bernie's already tried to win it by himself once. It didn't work. Now, if it was Bernie versus just one major contender, that would be different. I actually think that he could win it this time if it was only one major contender. But it's not. Think about it like this. There are a lot of people who say, oh, no, we should just consolidate and get behind Bernie. That sounds like a good idea, except for why didn't the establishment do that then? If they thought that would be a good idea in the context of the political environment that we're in right now. Because it isn't a good idea, and you can't win this particular race with only one ally beside you at this stage. They knew that they couldn't beat Bernie with just Biden, or beat Bernie with just Warren, or beat Bernie with just Kamala. They floated that idea. They realized very quickly that it would not work. So they flooded the stage, they flooded the field, and now they know, hey, we don't have to beat them by ourselves. We'll team up on them. But some Bernie supporters, I'm not going to say it, it's not all of them, not by any means, but too many of them, too many Bernie supporters who view Bernie as this deity rather than a human being, who view him as bigger than the process, but they weren't there. They don't know. I was there. I shed them tears at that damn convention. I watched this man win an election and have it taken from under him. So if you think that the polls mean anything at that convention, you're wrong. If you think that the donations mean anything at that convention, you are wrong. If you think that the crowds and the numbers, they don't matter when you step in that convention, and Cory Booker is giving a full-throated endorsement of whoever the candidate is that they choose. Kamala Harris is giving a full-throated endorsement of whoever the candidate they choose. Pete Buttigieg is giving a full-throated endorsement of whoever the candidate they choose. Joe Biden or Warren giving a full-throat, and you have endorsement after endorsement after speech after speech. And it would be demoralizing. It would be absolutely demoralizing. It will create consent. It will manufacture consent and create the belief that, well, wow, if all these candidates think that this particular candidate is better than Bernie, then it must be true. That's what will happen. They must have all talked about this and agreed that this candidate is better than Bernie for whatever reason. And people will believe it until it's too late, right? Nobody wanted to believe the election was rigged against Bernie until Donna Brazile came out and was like, y'all some dumbasses. Yeah, it was rigged. Our bad, my bad. Nobody wanted to believe it. Like that was outside of the that was outside of the progressive movement. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't pretend like the DNC has all of a sudden had a coming to Jesus moment because they changed the superdelegates rule. No, they just altered them a little bit. And they know the rules of the game have changed. So they stacked the field to match the new rules. If there are new rules, why are you trying to play the same game? You're playing the game the same way, thinking that, well, if it worked, it almost worked last time, so let me do the same exact thing and hope it works this time, when they clearly, and their supporters even, are clearly more prepared, and the media too, right? I'm not even gonna front. Their media is better than ours, better than the progressive independent media this time around. It wasn't the last time around, but our progressive media has lost its way. Our progressive media have become sycophants. And not even the Bernie, but the fame that for their brand. It's not about the movement anymore. They'll sit here and lie to you to your face and tell you that Medicare for all is going to phase out private health insurance when it's literally not going to do that. But they tell you that to your face. Why? Because Bernie said it is. Bernie didn't read his bill. I ain't going to lie to you, because it doesn't do that. But they don't care. So their media is better than ours right now. They're more They have a better team than we do right now. They're more unified than we are right now. And how do I know that? Because at the same time you have Neera Tanden praising Elizabeth Warren, people like TYT are simultaneously praising Elizabeth Warren. If we can't even come to a consensus that fucking Elizabeth Warren is clearly not a progressive, you think Bernie's going to win this? We can't even come to a unified consensus right now. As an entire, there was a petition that got put out on change.org talking about Tulsi having the election rigged against her. It got a good amount of signatures. I think it got like 50, 60,000 signatures. Bernie himself has 1 million unique individual donors, millions of followers on Twitter, millions of people interacting on social media. But the rigged process, the petition to address the rigged process, got 50,000 to 60,000 signatures. If the progressive movement was unified, that petition would have 500, 600, 700,000 signatures. If that petition had Bernie Sanders' name on it, it would have 500, 600, 700,000. Let me get some of these super chats. Jordan Cecilum, thanks for the super chat. Die hard Bernie supporters here. I completely agree. Disappointed he hasn't spoken out. Thanks for your super chat. I appreciate that. What do you think about Greta on the Echo yacht? I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, actually. Natalie Chavez. I'm hoping that if he gets elected as a Dem nominee, he will throw up his middle finger to the DNC and he picks Tulsi, which is actually, I got to address that too. He needs to empower millennials by picking a millennial. I 100% agree with that. Kameshwari, Kate, thanks for the super chat. Preach it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Krillin 876, Hillary's deep South support isn't in play in the general. 100% agree. Pop Reality, thanks for the super chat again. Imagine the truths Bernie can tell America, but he isn't telling them right now. He ain't telling nobody about Chelsea Manning. What has he said about Chelsea Manning? Chelsea Manning is still in jail right now. She's still in jail. Actually, do you know what the only thing recently on record that we have for Bernie as far as Chelsea Manning is concerned was him saying she still needs to serve her time. Oh, she's done great things for America, but she still needs to serve her time. That's what he said on the debate stage. That's the last thing. So he's not telling the great truths like that. Pop Reality, Bernie can't fight every battle before he gets the nomination. Okay, but that's not a good excuse though. I get what you're saying. I agree. But you find time to write a letter, open letter about Elizabeth Warren, to defend Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker. But you can't find time to speak up for the very same process that we know will ultimately be used to rig the election against you. At this point, it's about self-preservation. Because if they can cheat Tulsi, you think that donations or crowd size is going to stop them from cheating Bernie? Okay, so maybe y'all do not know about this famous quote that was said by the DNC attorney in our lawsuit against them, where he said if the DNC wanted to, they can go in a back room, a smoke-filled room, smoking cigars, and select the fucking primary candidate without any of our input. That is what the DNC believes. And until this lawsuit is won, that is how they are going to behave. And if this particular incident isn't proof enough of that for you, I don't know what to tell you. At this point, it should be about self-preservation. And as far as the vice presidency is concerned, I would love to think that Bernie would pick Tulsi as VP. One, let me just say this. Tulsi isn't concerned about VP right now. She's concerned about winning the presidency. That's what she is running for. So that's the first thing. And if it would be honestly a snake kind of a move and you're like, oh, I'm just going to be silent because I don't want the competition, and then I'll select her as VP and it'll make everything all better. That I would not respect. But I don't think that's what he's trying to do, though. But I do think he's playing politics. The second thing is, I know we want to think that like, oh, it'll be all hunky dory if Bernie he can capitulate to the DNC now. It's all right. It's all good with that theory, guys. I know y'all know about the superdelegate rule change, the one that says you can't. The superdelegates cannot vote in the first round, and that works out great for Bernie. I just want to make sure nothing's going on with my connection. It is me. See? So I got kind of what they do, unfortunately. Come in my room and mess stuff up. All right, so the superdelegates pick the vice president, are they? Because FDR was on the way out one way or the other. Bernie Sanders, they don't have to cheat Bernie by cheating him if they really want to. They could cheat Bernie by cheating his vice president pick. Assurance do we have that Bernie will speak out against the DNC when it matters the most? Because if we're going to be completely honest, he has not shown us. He's shown us he's willing to fight for Medicare for all. He's shown us he can evolve on foreign policy. He's shown us that he is going to continue to fight for workers' rights. He's shown us that he will continue to not just have a plan, but have legislation to back it. He's shown us all this. But he has not shown the propensity to fight against the DNC. He's not. That is his. If he had a big flaw, that would be it. So if the superdelegates can pick the vice president, is he going to use his leverage as the president, as a nominee, as what they would consider, at what the DNC considers to be the leader of the Democratic Party? That's how the DNC rolls. Once you are the nominee of their party, you are the leader until you are not anymore. You can even select as a head of the DNC, as a president. If you're a Democrat, you can actually choose who the head of the DNC is. Did y'all know that? Obama did that. Was it Obama? I want to say it was Obama. I think Obama was it Obama? I feel like it was Obama. Can't remember exactly. Oh yeah, it was. Obama switched out Howard Dean for David Weitzman Schultz. So it was Obama. So you can, like, you have a lot of power. Will he leverage that? It doesn't even have to be Tulsi. Right? It don't even have to be Tulsi. I would like it to be Tulsi. But like, say if it's Nina we're talking about. They kept Nina out of the convention, wouldn't let her endorse him, wouldn't let her nominate him at the convention. Silenced her voice. They silenced her voice, by the way, specifically because she was a black woman, and they didn't want the narrative being contradicted that they had created for him and his supporters, which they codify as Bernie Bros. So they didn't want that narrative getting changed, and unfortunately, nothing got fixed. Nothing was addressed as far as that's concerned. But if Tulsi doesn't win, I want Bernie to win. But none of them will win unless we have real, and then accept every time y'all attack Tulsi as critique and like, oh, but to criticize our candidate. How else is he supposed to know what he is doing we don't like if we don't critique him? The same way I feel about Tulsi. Get what I'm saying? Like, you don't confuse unity for bending the knee, because that's what a lot of people have been asking Tulsi supporters to do, and refusing to hold Bernie accountable. And like, today was a day that people should have been holding Bernie accountable en masse, and they have not done that. I've seen it. Can't you just endure? She should just drop out and endorse Bernie anyway. But I guarantee it, if it was Bernie who was getting cheated, that's not what Tulsi supporters would say. So with that being said, people, I'm gonna get up off of here. I'm gonna be back to live streaming regularly. QBounty.com, and I'll type it in this thing right here. QBounty/Niko. Thanks for the super chat, Gwen. And you can actually ask me super chats there, and I will either do a video addressing it or address it at the top of the show, whatever. But I did one about Jay-Z in the NFL deal. I'm about to do a few more tomorrow. And so you have actually a higher chance of getting an entire video dedicated to your question if you do it through QBounty.com. And so I hope that you all take advantage of that. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I much appreciate you all tuning in. I missed you guys. Can't stress that enough. You know, y'all are my sanity. Y'all are my sanity. I need y'all in my life. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of y'all say you're thankful for me, but I'm thankful that there are activists out there who like come here and go to the Convo Couch and just the network in general, take the information and then go out and use it for progress. Like that means the world to me, because it lets me know that, you know, what we're doing here isn't in vain. The stress isn't in vain. I do believe that brighter days are coming. I'm very optimistic about Tulsi making the second debate. I am. Because I do believe that there's going to be hell to pay because she didn't make this debate. So, with that being said, always remember, people, more than anything else, find your